All right, so grails are different for every collector. I get that. A lot of it has to do with what line you're into and what figure or vehicle or playset you're always on the hunt for, but I think we can all agree that in the world of collecting, there are a few toys that are just considered grails by everyone. And today on Rewind Toys, we're going to be talking about a few of those. All right, so first, let's start. Maybe a few of you out there are asking, what is a grail? And that's an easy enough question to answer. Grails are those items sought after by a bunch of collectors that for one reason or another, they're difficult to get your hands on. Maybe they're really expensive, like the USS Flag. We talked about it in this episode. Or maybe they're almost impossible to find, Muscle Mutts. Right there, that one. We've talked about things like rocket-firing Boba Fett, which was a prototype. And we talked about Savage He-Man. Some of you call him Wonder Bread He-Man, and we explain in that episode why that's not what he is, but we get why you call him that. We've also talked about the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander and why he's so rare. And look, if you haven't watched those episodes, you really should, because I want you to. But today, I want to focus on a few more we haven't mentioned here on the show before, and we're going to start with Star Wars. The 1977 Kenner Luke Skywalker with double telescoping lightsaber, also known by some of you as Farm Boy Luke. Now, when Kenner first released the Star Wars figures, they had a cool idea. A lightsaber that could telescope out, thus mimicking the movie. The design consisted of two interlocking pieces, a thicker primary tube that was molded into the figure's hand, and a thinner tube inside that one that could be pulled out. The problem was, it was really flimsy, and it broke way too easy. They were part of the early bird figures, and they call this one Farm Boy Luke because, he's wearing his Farm Boy outfit. Also, his saber is yellow, which was an odd choice, considering I don't think there was a yellow saber. Some of you guys are bigger Star Wars nuts than I am, but I don't recall Luke ever having a yellow saber. Luke wasn't the only one with the telescoping saber. There was also early versions of Vader and Obi-Wan before Kenner, they figured out they didn't work very well, and they released new versions with loose single-piece sabers that weren't attached to their hand. These figures are among the rarest and most valuable Star Wars collectibles. Loose ones can sell for over $5,000, but carded, graded versions have actually went as high as $80,000. $80,000 for an action figure. They can't fathom. I love collecting, but that's a lot. All right, for this next one, we're gonna jump back in time a little bit, but it is a big toy. It's one that people want. This is 1961, Mark's Toys, and this is the Great Garloo. Garloo stood 2 feet tall. He was battery operated, and he was weird looking. Now, at this time, the Mark's Toy Company was the world's largest toy manufacturer, and they wanted to create something to hone in on the monster movie sci-fi boom that was happening at the time. Garloo was a risk, running you around $18 in 1961, which is $180 today. He could move, bend, even pick things up. He wore a leopard print loincloth, and did I mention he looked weird? Now, that price tag meant he was very rare. People didn't buy him a lot, and rare, that means collectible. Also, looking weird in the toy world doesn't always hurt. No, really, we like weird things. We just do. Now, if you want one, first you have to find it, and then expect to pay upwards to $2,000, especially if he's still working. Now, we did a large toys episode, and we didn't mention this one, even though it's a larger play set. And I guess this one could have fit there, but we didn't, so I'm going to mention it now. 1975, from a little company called Amsco. This was the Marvel World Adventure playset. Now, Amsco no longer exists, but at the time, they were a subsidiary of Milton Bradley, and well known for making playsets. Playsets made out of cardboard. Constructed from die-cut thick cardboard, you had to punch out the parts and put it together. It was made up of 5 New York buildings. Well, the front facades anyway. There was really nothing behind them. Those buildings were the Daily Bugle, the Fantastic Four Baxter Building, Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, Peter Parker's apartment, and the Avengers Mansion. Who knew in the Marvel Universe those were all like right next door to one another? It also had 25 cardboard figures that came with little plastic stands, and that included the likes of the Hulk, Thor, Spider-Man, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Green Goblin, Red Skull, Doctor Doom. You get it. There were a bunch of Marvel characters. There were also cardboard vehicles and a breakaway wall, which I would have been worried to use because cardboard. For the time, it was really highly detailed, which made it kind of awesome. But like I might have mentioned, it was made out of cardboard, and so it didn't really hold up over time very well, which again makes it very rare today. An open, complete set might run you $800 to $900, but a boxed, sealed one, I don't know. I actually couldn't find anything regarding a sealed, boxed one, which means if you could find one sealed in box, it's probably going to be worth quite a bit. Regardless, considering their original price of $6.95, I'd say their values, I'd say it's held up pretty well. For me, this next one it's kind of weird because, like, I love this toy line. It's actually one of the toy lines I collect the most. I mean, you can kind of see it behind me. But I don't necessarily understand this particular figure. For this one, we're going to go to 1993, and we're going to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Scratch the Cat figure by Playmate Toys. Now, in the world of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he was a minor character, a cat burglar, as it were, but he was introduced in a time when interest in the non-turtle characters was starting to decline. He was also never in the cartoon, another fact that likely hurt his popularity when he came out. What that meant, for the figure, was a lower production run, and that is what makes him so sought after today. Scratch was designed by Ryan Brown. He was originally intended to be a high-tech character, but was changed to a convict, complete with a striped uniform and a sidekick named Jailbird. Now again, I collect TMNT, but in full honesty, owning one of these never really grabbed my attention, much for the reasons I mentioned. He just wasn't part of the line I remember. But if I could get my hands on one for a good price today... Loose, complete, he goes for like $1,500 to $2,000. Carded, he's going to be $5,000 and up. But watch out, there are a lot of knockoffs and knockoff accessories out there. And I mean, he seems to be one. And like I've seen them, they're impressive looking. So just, watch yourself. For me, you guys are the grail. You're the things I seek out the most. Okay, maybe not the most. I mean, there are toys I probably won't. But you know what? Just if you got like 2 seconds, do me a favor. Go down, press subscribe. Maybe click that thumbs up, leave a comment. Do the things that you do. It helps me out a ton. And I love hearing from you guys. And I love having you guys here. Okay, that's it. Let's get back to it. All right, the next one comes from 1988. This is Masters of the Universe. To be specific, Masters of the Universe, Laser Power He-Man, and Laser Light Skeletor. We're going to talk about both. These are really rare because they were released in Europe, and Europe only. And they were released as the final wave of the OG line. You see, by 1987, the He-Man line was starting to waver a little bit. I'm sure the 1987 film didn't help much. Still, the figures were somewhat based on the film, and it was hoped they would help rejuvenate the line. They had backpacks that stored their batteries and all the electronics that allowed for their glowing action features, and honestly, they looked pretty damn cool. Now, they never made it to the US market, mainly because, well, MO2 just wasn't selling well in North America at that time. But in Europe, sales were still strong and demand was high. So they did well there, but again, they weren't released in here, the US, so rare. Now, because sales were high in Europe, they also brought us Titus and Megator, two massive 16-inch tall figures also released in Europe. Titus was the heroic giant who had at one time helped build the Castle Grayskull, and Megator was the giant destroyer who fought alongside the evil horde and the Snake Men in Preternia. Due to these figures, again, only having been released in Europe, they are extremely rare and highly sought after by collectors. Now, in 2010, they did a reissue of Titus and Megator, and those, the reissues, well, they're going to run you over $100, but original 87 loose, those are like $2,000 to $3,000, and in box, you're looking at $10,000 all the way up to $24,000, depending on condition. Now, as for the laser power figures, roughly $2,000 loose, and on card, you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 for a figure. I've actually never seen one of any of these out in the real world. Not at cons, not at shows. I've never actually seen one. But if you have, let me know in the comments. In 1981, a film called Clash of the Titans hit theaters. I saw it. I was like a wee little lad, and it was a spectacle, to be sure. They, of course, released a line of action figures by Mattel, which the action figures themselves are collectible, but there was one toy that really landed with the fanatics. They released the Kraken. Those of you who got that, you're my favorite. The Kraken was close to 14 inches tall, featuring 4 articulated arms and a head molded to look like the film. Now, the figure is often found damaged or missing parts. Due to its age and how fragile it was, complete, loose, or boxed figures are all kind of hard to find. Original, loose, and good condition, that's upwards to $800 to $1,000. And the boxed one, it's closer to $2,000. And sealed in box, actually couldn't find any sealed in box, so probably a lot. Like a lot. Still, he looks really cool, and if you're into like the really big toys, like the big figures, he looks great on a shelf. These I have seen out at toy shows. I've never even glanced at them to consider buying one. Most of these I don't, because I can't afford it. This next one I kind of want, though. Like, this is one I would, if I had the money, I would probably drop it on. This one I want. Released in 1979 by Kenner, it made little sense because it was a toy based on an R-rated horror film, but it's awesome looking. In 1979, Alien, from the movie with the same name, was released. 18 inches tall, highly detailed. Just look at that skull, man. Now, Kenner had originally prototyped a standard 3 3/4 size figure, but it just didn't feel right to them. So they gave us this bad boy instead. There was a spring-loaded inner jaw, and parts of it glowed in the dark. I love glow-in-the-dark stuff. Like, everything about this screams toy I would love to have. And I mentioned it was from an R-rated film, which is what makes it so rare. Kids hadn't seen the film and thus weren't really asking for this toy. And not long after it was released, parents got all up in arms and made a stink. Due to poor sales and pressure from parenting groups, it was recalled. That makes it rare. But so does the fact that numerous protruding parts meant it could break easily. You can find one loose for around $300 to $400, and if it's incomplete, probably a bit less. But just know this, the dome part for the head, that by itself can cost you over $100. So getting one complete with box, that's going to run you over $1,000 easy. All right, we got one more on our list, and this last one is the big hitter, literally. He is big, and he can hit. Sort of. This is the 1977 Mattel Shogun Warrior Godzilla. Produced by Bandai Poppy in Japan and distributed in the States by Mattel, this behemoth stood around 19 inches tall. It featured little wheels in his feet that, helped you move it when you walked. There was a lever on the back of the head that would flick the tongue. Some say it's meant to be a flame, but it looks like a tongue to me. And the fist could fly off the wrist with a push of a lever. Why? I have no idea, because I don't recall Godzilla ever launching his fist, but it's cool for the toy. Godzilla was part of the Shogun Warriors line, which was a series of 24-inch tall plastic robots imported by Mattel, and those are rad enough by themselves. Still, Godzilla is the one most collectors want, and he is a prime example of top-notch toy making, especially for the time. Here's the problem. That flicking tongue and that firing fist, well, the tongue would often stop working, and the fists, it would get lost a lot. The tail was also a problem point, as it too would often get lost. What I can tell you is these aren't as difficult to find as most of the toys we listed today. Loose, complete, you can usually snag one for $250 to $300, or closer to $500 and $600 for better condition. Boxed, you're looking more like $800 to $1,000. But he's really cool. I'm not even I like all the Godzilla movies, I enjoy them, but I'm not like a fanatic about it, but he's really cool. Anyway, there you have it, a few toys considered to be grails by most collectors. Now, I get why most of these are sought after, most of them. But what about you guys? What are some of your personal grails? For me, there are a few. Like the entire Tron Tomy collection, carded and in box. I have the NECA Anniversary carded and in box, and they're worth something on their own, but not those originals. There's the 1993 Kenner Jurassic Park Electronic T-Rex in box, the 1990 Kenner Dark Knight Collection Batmobile. Ooh, and the 92 animated series Batmobile. Oh, and Combat Belt Batman. I really want that guy. For a carded figure, he's really expensive. For me, those are some of the tough ones to find or afford. And for me, they fall into grails because they're things I collect. But I want to know what some of your grails are. Let me know in the comments. Thanks all of you for joining here on Rewind Toys. And don't forget, when it comes to finding your personal toy grails, the hunt is still half the fun.